choice, a lot of interesting things going on, and you still decided to be here and listen about security. So, well done. Thank you, everyone. A friend of mine that had a talk earlier told me, like, you should start and say something funny. And I was like, I'm talking about security. Like, I can make people cry. I can definitely not make them laugh by talking about that. But anyways, it is what it is. I would love for the beginning to know if any of you is already a Crowdsec user or know what the tool is about. One, two, oh. Well, that's already great. Thank you so much. This presentation is mostly going to be about our story, about what we do and how we do it. It's going to focus a bit on the technical details, not too much, but we can have a conversation afterwards if you would like to know something more. Without further ado, I'm going to start by a little story about security. I think we all know that security for the past 40 years has been all about single soldier approach. We were going one against the army, hoping that we can change the world as this one person being able to fight everyone. And that definitely works in Hollywood movies if you're like Captain America and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go against the army, and there is always the happy ending. In the real world, it failed pretty much every time. I mean, you wouldn't go yourself alone against the army. You wouldn't go alone against a beehive. So how come in every single industry we use this collaborative approach but not in security? So this is what we are trying to change. Together, we are trying to build a network of people that are gonna fight a network. This way, it's the only way we can try to do something in security that hasn't been done before and use the only thing that goes into our advantage, and that is the fact that there are more people on the internet with good intentions versus the bad intentions. So if we all team up and try to fight the crime together, maybe we stand a chance to do something. So as mentioned before, we work together to build the largest ever IP reputation network in the world. And we are using community for that, meaning that every single person that is part of our network is helping it get stronger. To give you a reference, you might understand, you probably know Waze, application that is letting you know what's happening in traffic, whether there is like a traffic jam or a car incident that happened just before you. We are doing exactly the same thing when it comes to malicious activity online. We are flagging the things by using the information coming from our users. And I mean, I think we're all spending more time on internet than in the car. So I let you judge how relevant this kind of thing is. And as of today, we are the largest network on the planet. Our solution is used in 187 countries. So we are having contributors from pretty much everywhere that are making the network stronger each day. Crowdsec today is already dealing with over 200 attack vectors. You can build scenarios on your own. Basically, the way we function is that anything that can be found in logs is something that we can detect. So this is where we are getting the source of information. It can be anything from a web scan, port scan, layer 7 DDoS, brute force attack, ransomware, credential card stuffing, bot scalping, you name it. And for the scenarios that are not already there, you have the capability to build scenarios on your own. It's an open source tool that is basically a tool set which allows you to customize everything and build things that are going to work for you if they haven't been built so far. And now getting a bit more into details of how Crowdsec works. So we are basically editing an MIT open source software. So it's fully transparent. There is MIT open source license. There is no trick around it. It's there and it's available to everyone. So the idea of this software is to prevent threats from happening. Users that are in our network are automatically sharing IP addresses that are having suspicious or malicious behavior towards them. At this point, we are applying our intelligence and technology to make sure that the information we are receiving from our users automatically, it's something that is relevant, that is not just a background noise, yet another IP that is going to land on the block list without a reason. We make sure that it is. And once we are sure that the attack is legitimate, we provide a community source real-time map of malicious IP addresses. This is a fully automated process, and we provide that to all users in our community. The idea is, if you're part of our network, you're automatically going to benefit from everything that we can provide to you. And as for the last step, of course, we provide additional value to organizations with professional services and many other features and stuff you can build around the tool on its own. And now to explain a bit more how the security engine works, I won't be getting too much into technical details, but the idea is that in the first stage, we are acquiring information. So we can connect to any of the data sources that you have, wherever your logs are stored. So it can be LogPid, syslog, journald, CM, Kafka, wherever your information is, basically we can read it from there. So we are not storing your logs, we are not really a CM. What we do is that we are reading the information from there. Once we read the information, we are doing the detection part. So the security engine that is running is looking for bad behavior in the logs. And it's very actionable because we tell you what this bad behavior is. So it's not just there is a random IP doing something. No, we know exactly what the IP has been trying to do. We can tell you whether there is stuffing, any type of scan, brute force, DDoS, and all the hundreds of behaviors that I mentioned earlier on. As for the third step, it's remediation. So remediation components is basically propagating the decision on what should happen once there is something like malicious being detected. In this case, you can decide whether you just want to postpone something, send a CAPTCHA, do you want to block it, and also you choose at which level you want to remediate. So it's not the same for every user. It really depends on your setup, on everything that you have in your stack, and you're having full control over this part. And the last part, and what Crowdsec is known for, is the sharing aspect. So the machine is then automatically sharing the IPs behind that bad behavior with everyone in our community. So as I mentioned earlier, every time you're partaking in the network and sharing something, you're going to receive something in return. And as of today, as we are the largest network, I think we're counting around 50 million malicious IPs in our data lake, which is significantly larger than any other database in the world. But there is much more value just than size of the network. It's also the way the data is sourced, the way data is processed, the fact that data lakes are divided in the parts where one is having 0 false positives, so you're sure it's a block list, and other you can use for different like investigation or just simply to keep it for yourself. Some of the benefits of crowdsourced protection, if not being very obvious, but the first one is clearly open source. So there is no secret with our software. It's out there, it's visible, it's audited many times a year, tested by many people, challenged by even more people. Open source has a lot of its values, but it's definitely not an easy path to take. It's versatile. We really believe in CI/CD. Our entire team, our entire core team has been composed by pen testers, ex-red teamers, people that used to work in MSSP environment, people that just want to reduce this workload and make sure that you're purely focused on what really matters, that you're not receiving unnecessary alerts, a million things that are not going to be actionable and that are just going to waste your time. It's behavior-based. Signatures didn't prove to be so good thus far. We are purely focusing on the behavior, on anything that can be found in your logs. A good example for this one could be, for example, for different types of bots. It's something that can be detected in a behavior, but it's not something that can be seen if in a like NDR or a solution like that. It's very actionable. It's proactive defense, so we are not waiting for something to happen bad for us to react to it. Our approach is more like we provide you the information in advance of the malicious activity that could be relevant for your environment, so we are proactive and we see these kind of things before they occur, and you know them. And for those working in the security, you know that every single second counts. You cannot wait to have just a list of random IPs that are irrelevant. All the IPs in our database are constantly being refreshed. It's every few milliseconds, and based on the setup that you have, you're receiving them also in real time. And this is the real-time aspect, especially that in security, there are very few things you can control. You don't know when you're going to be attacked. You don't know who is going to attack you. You don't know how long it's going to be lasting. The only thing you can hope for is that you're going to know it first. So if it ever comes to you, you're already protected against it in advance. This is a bit like a kind of a humble brag post, right? About industry recognition. Crowdsec is so far being used by more than 200,000 organizations. So I don't know how that number sounds to you, but our company exists for 3 years, so we are very proud that we have users in pretty much every registered country in this world. We have been a momentum leader, best meets requirement, best relationship, best ROI tool, ranked by many different sources. We are also part of the Google Startup Program. And here you can see a few quotes of our users and CISOs who have been loyal to us from the very beginning of the project. To give you an idea on different types of users we are working with, as we started as an open source project at the beginning, we were naturally attracting a lot of hobbyists, a lot of people that just started talking about the project. So without any marketing efforts, we managed even to reach larger users, different governments in the world. So far we are working with 10 different governments, and as I said, 200,000 other organizations that are using our solution. Some of these being listed here. And a very important thing to mention is that Crowdsec works for pretty much all types of industries. So no matter whether you're working in an e-commerce, in a bank, insurance company, for the government, in the education sector, healthcare sector, the solution is going to be working for you, is going to be working for your perimeter. And more importantly, the Crowdsec is not the type of solution that is there to necessarily replace something. If you want to replace other solutions, you can, but it natively works with pretty much all the security stacks that you're having. So if you want to enforce decisions at different levels to work with different solutions, the information can be sent from one to another. When it comes to our partner network, we are having more than 20 channel partners and over 15 technology partners. When I say technology partners, I mean companies that we are closely working with to make the product better, to deliver more, to enable more integrations. But also when it comes to technological compatibility, it's endless. There are hundreds of solutions that we are currently supporting. We are very, very proud of our partnership with AWS. The product can be found soon on their marketplace. And as of today, you can contact your AWS account manager and we can set up your account from there as well through the APN program they're having. Now, getting to the compliance, I'm usually leaving this one for the end. I find it least fun, but it's kind of a necessary thing I have to mention. We are ensuring that we are GDPR compliant. So we are focused on information sharing, but we are not sharing personal information. In fact, for 200,000 organizations we are working with, we don't know who most of them are. And that's the good and the bad part of the open source. Because we have the benefit of receiving information about malicious IP, we are seeing the timestamp, and we are seeing the type of attack it has been performed. What we don't see is who the user is, what their email is, what their password is clearly, or any other personal information that could be a subject to the GDPR. So all the information is as well kept for the least amount of time. We are not trying to have the largest database that is going to be polluted by information that is irrelevant. Everything that we have, everything that is there, even if it's there for a few minutes, for a few seconds, or a few days, it's there for a reason. And clearly, your logs are never being exported. Very important to mention. And I would love to wrap up this session by just referring to what I said at the beginning. Cybercriminals really need IPs to scale their operations and remain anonymous. What we are doing is peeling the onion. We are removing the only thing that lets them be anonymous. We are removing the only thing they need in order to keep performing their attacks. So we are working around the clock. We are burning those IPs, and we are making sure that even if the IP has been compromised by someone else, or it's their IP, that everyone in our community knows. So whenever you're taking part in it, you're going to benefit from the intelligence that you're going to receive back. And yeah, as for the next steps, clearly visit Crowdsec. I'm going to be here for a few more minutes if you got any questions or you would like to move forward, test the solution out. And once again, thank you very much for taking the time to be here today.